What we're going to talk about next are some common compensation and movement patterns and deviations that happen within a person's spine. So everybody has some degree of this to some extent, depending on your job, depending on the activities that you do. All of these things have an impact, and people think that they have to either be born with some genetic abnormality or they have to have had a trauma to have some of these deviations. And the truth is that everybody has some of them to a certain degree, but not everybody experiences pain with them, depending on how your unique neural pain signature works. So the first deviation or compensation that we're going to look at is going to be called lordosis. So what can happen if, let's say, the muscles in your low back are really, really tight, and then the muscles on the front side of your body are really, really tight, is that they can pull down on the front side of the pelvis, which tilts the pelvis, and that could put that lumbar spine into an exaggerated curve, which is what lordosis is. Again, and it's never just one thing. We're always remembering that it's a combination of all of these things together. So a combination of the low back being tight in combination with the hip flexors and the quads being short and tight in the front contribute to that lordosis. So the next deviation that we're going to see that's becoming even more prevalent and common in today's era, especially with our texting and our emailing and our driving, is kyphosis. And kyphosis is an exaggerated curve of the thoracic spine. And a lot of people think that this is something that only happens to the elderly, but I can't tell you how many more teenagers I'm seeing the last 4 or 5 years in our clinic who are having this very exaggerated curve of their thoracic spine. More time on video games, more time on their texting on their phone. It really has a huge impact. And that might not even be the case. Maybe they just spend a lot of time studying where they're over at a desk all day long, which would round that thoracic spine forward. So this is one of the most common deviations that we see throughout the spine, and it can cause people all sorts of trouble with their movement as well as pain levels as well. The next one that we're going to look at is scoliosis. Now, what's interesting about scoliosis is that scoliosis is not only just a lateral compression of the spine, but it's actually a rotational compression of a spine. And again, this is a three-dimensional issue within the whole spinal column itself. So as we look at our x-ray here, it's really easy to see the curve of the spine. So what's happening is that the connective tissues up here in this region are really short, contracting that over, but it's also short down here in this low spine, and as it gets contracted it pulls it over and pushes, and then it gets tight over here and it pushes the spine this way. But the other thing to think about is that when this is happening is that the shoulder girdle and the pelvis start rotating off of each other. And if you watch the wrinkles in my shirt, when I put this twist in my body, you can see this twist in the tissue, or that would be going on within the connective tissues as well. And so if you take the old-fashioned phone cord, or if you were to take a t-shirt and you twist it, what happens is that when it starts to get past its end range of motion is that it pops out the side. And that's what happens with the spine, is that the spine only has a certain amount of rotation in it, and as soon as it gets challenged past its ideal rotation, then those vertebrae start to have to adapt to that shape. So this is a very common issue, and most of us have some degree of a scoliosing. Obviously, this is very severe in our picture here.